discovering your purpose, creating a single life that's uniquely yours. Identifying your core passions, the foundation of purpose, reflecting on personal joys. A global study of over 15,000 people found that only 28% feel their work provides a sense of purpose or is meaningful, suggesting many adults struggle to articulate their core passions in professional life. HP study, as cited in Forbes 2023. Most people haven't stopped long enough to ask what genuinely lights them up. After 40 and single, you possess something rare, the time and mental space to answer that question honestly, without filtering it through someone else's expectations. Your passions aren't waiting to be invented. They're already embedded in your history, tucked into moments you've likely dismissed as ordinary. Consider the weekend mornings when you lose track of time. Maybe you're refinishing furniture, researching obscure historical events, or teaching yourself Italian through cooking videos. These aren't frivolous distractions. They're breadcrumbs leading back to what matters most to you. The challenge isn't discovering passion from scratch, it's recognizing what's been hiding in plain sight all along. Most of us have been trained to ignore these signals, especially if they don't align with productive, resume-building activities or relationship priorities that consumed our 30s. Introspection requires a specific kind of honesty. You're looking for patterns across different life chapters, not just recent interests. The activities that brought you satisfaction at 25 might connect to what energizes you now, even if the expression has changed. Perhaps you coordinated charity events in your 20s and now find yourself drawn to community organizing. Or you loved debating politics in college and recently discovered podcasting. These aren't random, they reveal consistent threads. Start by cataloging moments of genuine happiness without judgment. Write down instances when you felt most yourself, most alive, regardless of whether they seem significant enough. Include the trivial, the satisfaction of organizing your spice rack by region of origin, the quiet pleasure of a solo hike that extended 3 hours longer than planned. Include professional wins and creative failures. Include the afternoon you spent helping a neighbor troubleshoot their website and lost yourself completely in the problem solving. What you're building is an emotional map. The goal isn't to identify one singular passion that will define your purpose forever. Few people work that way, despite what self-help mythology suggests. Instead, you're looking for clusters, recurring themes that appear across different contexts and time periods. These patterns matter because they reveal what you value when nobody's watching, when there's no external validation at stake. Exploring new interests. Reflection alone won't tell you everything you need to know. You can stare at your journal entries and analyze your past until you've constructed a perfectly logical theory of who you are. But theory and practice diverge in ways that matter. Some passions reveal themselves only through action, through the tactile experience of doing something you've never attempted before. Experimentation shifts you from observer to participant. When you try a pottery class after years of saying you're not creative, or volunteer at an animal shelter despite never having owned a pet, you're gathering data your introspection can't access. You're testing assumptions against reality. Maybe you discover that working with clay frustrates you more than it relaxes you, but the people in the studio fascinate you. That's useful information. Or perhaps you realize you don't particularly love animals, but the organizational chaos of the shelter triggers something in you. A desire to create systems, to bring order to well-intentioned disorder. The permission to experiment freely often arrives with single life after 40. Your weekends belong entirely to you now. There's no negotiating how to spend Saturday afternoon. No compromise about whether this month's discretionary budget goes toward your interests or theirs. This autonomy isn't selfish. It's structural. Use it deliberately. Start small and specific rather than grand and vague. Don't commit to being more adventurous. Instead, sign up for the intermediate cooking class that intimidates you slightly, or attend one meeting of the local historical society, or spend 3 hours learning basic coding through free online tutorials. Set a low barrier for trying and an equally low barrier for quitting. Not everything will resonate, and that's the entire point. You're eliminating possibilities as much as you're discovering them. Some experiments will surprise you. Research published in the journal Emotion shows that people consistently underestimate how much they'll enjoy novel social experiences. This phenomenon, known as effective forecasting error, highlights that individuals are often not accurate in predicting their own emotional responses to unfamiliar situations. That hiking group you're avoiding might become the highlight of your month, or it might confirm that you prefer solitude on trails. Both outcomes teach you something true. Track what you learn, but resist premature conclusions. Give each experiment enough time to move past the awkward beginner phase, but not so much time that you're forcing something that clearly doesn't fit. 3 sessions, maybe 4. Then reassess honestly. Are you energized or drained? Curious or indifferent? The answers will guide you toward what genuinely resonates, refining your understanding of the passions that can shape your unique, purposeful life. Integrating passions into daily life. Passion without integration remains theoretical. You can discover what energizes you, what pulls your attention even when you're tired, what makes hours dissolve, and still live a life where those passions occupy the margins, squeezed into Sunday afternoons or the week between Christmas and New Year's. The gap between knowing and living is where most purpose dies. Integration doesn't mean quitting your job to pursue pottery full-time or restructuring your entire existence around a newly discovered interest. It means examining the actual architecture of your days and asking where your passions can realistically inhabit that structure. This requires specificity. If you've identified that you come alive when mentoring others, what does that look like on a Tuesday evening? Can you volunteer with a youth program once a week? Can you propose leading a training initiative at work? Can you offer informal guidance to someone earlier in your career path over monthly coffee? The stakes here aren't abstract. A 2017 meta-analysis published in the Journal of Happiness Studies by Newman, Tay, and Diener synthesized findings from numerous studies and concluded that engagement in leisure activities is significantly associated with higher life satisfaction and positive affect and lower negative affect. The research consistently points to a substantial positive impact on well-being and a reduction in burnout risk, even when professional circumstances remain constant. Your passions don't need to become your profession to matter profoundly. Single Life After 40 offers structural advantages for this kind of integration that often go unacknowledged. You're not negotiating household decisions that affect another adult's comfort or schedule. You can say yes to the Tuesday night commitment without checking whether it conflicts with someone else's needs. You can allocate your Saturday mornings to whatever serves your sense of purpose rather than splitting that time between competing priorities. But autonomy creates its own challenge. Without external accountability, it's easy to deprioritize what matters most to you. Work expands to fill available time. Passive leisure, scrolling, streaming, drifting, colonizes hours you meant to spend differently. Intention alone won't protect your passions from erosion. Build infrastructure instead. If writing energizes you, block the same 2 hours weekly on your calendar and treat them as non-negotiable as a doctor's appointment. If you've discovered that community organizing gives you purpose, commit to one specific role with defined boundaries rather than vague involvement. Make your passion-aligned activities as concrete and scheduled as everything else that actually happens in your life. Track what you're actually doing, not what you wish you were doing. At week's end, can you point to specific hours when you lived aligned with what you've identified as core to who you are? If not, your passions remain decorative rather than foundational. Some misalignment will always exist. You might need the paycheck from work that doesn't fulfill you, and that's a practical reality, not a moral failing. But the question that matters is whether your life contains regular, protected space for what you've discovered about yourself, or whether you're still waiting for the right conditions to begin. Building a vision, crafting a life aligned with your purpose, clarifying your core values. Values differ from passions in one critical way. They're not about what you enjoy doing, but about what you refuse to compromise. Your core values are the principles that remain non-negotiable even when they cost you something. Relationships, opportunities, comfort. They're revealed not in aspiration, but in friction, in the moments when you've said no to something attractive because it violated something deeper. When a job offer comes with a salary increase but requires you to misrepresent data to clients, your decision reveals whether integrity is truly a core value or just something you claim when it's convenient. When a friend repeatedly dismisses your boundaries and you finally end the friendship despite years of history, you're making visible what you actually value about how people should treat each other. These aren't theoretical exercises. They're diagnostic moments. Most people can quickly list values they admire: honesty, creativity, family, independence, but struggle to identify which ones actually govern their choices. The distinction matters because values that don't influence behavior aren't values. Their aspirations or borrowed language from culture, family, or social media. Start by examining recent decisions that felt difficult or uncomfortable. When you chose to work late instead of attending a social event, was that about ambition, financial security, or avoiding vulnerability? When you declined to lie for a colleague, even though it would have helped them, what principle were you protecting? Look for patterns across multiple contexts. If you consistently choose solitude over convenience, autonomy might be a core value. If you repeatedly sacrifice personal comfort to help others, service might govern your choices more than you've acknowledged. Write down 3 decisions from the past year where you experienced genuine internal conflict. For each, identify what you protected by choosing as you did. That's likely a core value. Now identify what you sacrificed. If what you gave up appears repeatedly across different scenarios but never wins, it's probably not actually core to who you are. It's something you think you should value. Testing values requires examining the gap between stated beliefs and actual resource allocation. If you claim to value health but haven't prioritized exercise in months, health might matter to you without being core. Core values show up in your calendar, your budget, and your energy distribution without constant willpower. They're where you spend limited resources, time, money, attention, even when it's inconvenient. Being single after 40 forces this clarity. Kislev, 2019. Without a partner's values to blend with or accommodate, you can't hide behind "we decided" or "our family prioritizes." Your life architecture becomes a visible manifestation of what you actually value versus what sounds good at dinner parties. That transparency isn't comfortable, but it's extraordinarily useful for building something authentic. Designing your ideal lifestyle. When Sarah turned 43, she'd spent 2 decades in corporate marketing while describing herself as someone who values creativity and community. Her calendar told a different story. She worked 60-hour weeks optimizing email conversion rates, attended networking events she found exhausting, and spent weekends recovering alone. When her company offered a promotion requiring relocation, she surprised herself by declining, not because of the move, but because she'd finally recognized that autonomy and geographic stability had been quietly governing her choices for years, while career advancement remained something she thought she should want. Values become visible when you track where they actually live. Research in psychology consistently highlights a discrepancy between individuals' espoused values and their actual behavior. Fisher et al., 2017. Studies have frequently shown that self-reported values often correlate weakly with how people actually allocate their time and resources. Dang et al., 2020. A meta-analysis published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology, for instance, examined numerous studies and found that while values do predict behavior, the correlations are typically modest. Parks-Leduc et al. In 2015. This suggests that what people say they value may not always align with their observable actions. Individuals who claim family as their top priority might spend fewer hours with relatives than those who rank it lower, but whose behavior consistently demonstrates genuine commitment. Observing concrete behavioral patterns through time diaries or financial records often provides a more accurate reflection of an individual's true priorities than self-assessments alone. Sarah began differently. She printed 3 months of credit card statements and highlighted every purchase, then categorized them by what value each reflected. Spending on art supplies, workshop fees, and her ceramic studio membership clustered together, revealing that creative expression wasn't an aspiration. It was something she'd been funding consistently even while her professional identity said otherwise. The exercise didn't require her to change anything immediately. It simply made the invisible visible. Try this yourself. Look at your bank statements, your calendar, your photo roll from the past 3 months. What patterns emerge? Where does your money go when you're not thinking about it? What activities fill your time when nobody's watching? These behavioral breadcrumbs often lead straight to your authentic values, bypassing the stories you tell yourself about who you should be. Once you've identified those core values, the next step isn't dramatic reinvention. It's intentional alignment, designing a daily rhythm and long-term trajectory that honors what you've discovered. Sarah didn't quit her job. She negotiated a 4-day work week, used Fridays for pottery, and started saying no to evening events that drained her. Small recalibrations, but they transformed her experience of being single from waiting for something to building something deliberate. Setting purpose-driven goals. Most people treat goal setting like filling out a form, list objectives, assign deadlines, hope for motivation. Then January becomes March. The gym membership gathers dust, and you've proven once again that you're bad at follow through. The problem isn't your discipline, it's that your goals weren't connected to anything real. Purpose driven goals work backwards from the values you've already identified. If autonomy emerged as a core value, save $50,000 means nothing until you connect it to what autonomy actually requires. Maybe an emergency fund that lets you walk away from toxic work environments, or seed money for freelance transition. The dollar amount stays the same, but now it's attached to something that matters when you're tired on a Tuesday night. Start with one value you've confirmed through behavioral evidence. Write it at the top of a page. Below it, describe what your life looks like when that value is fully honored. Not in vague terms, but in observable details. If creative expression is your value, what are you actually doing? Teaching weekend workshops? Maintaining a studio space? Exhibiting work twice yearly? From that description, extract 3 specific measurable outcomes you could achieve in 12 months. Not be more creative, but complete 10 finished pieces or teach 4 community classes. Each outcome should have a clear yes or no answer. Did you do it or didn't you? Then break each outcome into quarterly milestones. If your 12-month goal is teaching 4 classes, your first quarter might focus on curriculum development and venue research. Second quarter, pilot 1 class with friends. Third quarter, secure a community center partnership. Fourth quarter, teach 3 public sessions. You're building scaffolding, not waiting for inspiration. Most advice skips what single people actually need: accountability infrastructure that functions without a partner. Couples often use each other for this. Single life requires something different. Schedule weekly 15-minute reviews with yourself. Calendar it like any other appointment. Ask 3 questions. What did I complete? What blocked progress? What's my next specific action? Track answers in a simple document. The act of writing creates friction that vague intentions never encounter. Financial advisor and author Suze Orman frequently emphasizes that people spend more time planning vacations than planning their financial futures. The same applies to purpose. You wouldn't plan a trip by writing, "Go somewhere meaningful," and hoping it works out. When progress stalls, and it will, resist the urge to abandon the goal entirely. Instead, examine whether the obstacle is practical or existential. Practical obstacles need problem solving. Adjust timelines, find different resources, break steps smaller. Existential obstacles mean the goal isn't actually connected to your values, and you should stop pretending it matters to you. Taking action, turning purpose into reality, setting clear goals. Start with 1 behavioral value from your previous work. Not 5, not all of them, just the one that showed up most consistently in your spending and calendar data. You're building practice, not assembling a vision board. Create a 12-month outcome statement that connects directly to this value. If creative expression governed your choices, your outcome might be complete and exhibit 12 finished paintings, or publish 6 essays in literary journals. The marker needs binary clarity. You either did or didn't. Avoid vague aspirations like become more creative or explore my artistic side. These aren't outcomes, they're therapy topics. Now, work backward using quarterly milestones. Break your 12-month target into 4 3-month checkpoints that build sequentially. Your first quarter might focus on skill development, taking a course, establishing daily practice, or building foundational knowledge. Second quarter shifts to production, creating finished work, building a portfolio, making tangible progress. Third quarter emphasizes refinement and feedback, getting outside perspectives, revising, improving quality. Fourth quarter centers on completion and delivery, the actual outcome you committed to at the start. Each milestone needs its own measurable criteria. Make progress on my novel. Fails this test. Write 20,000 words, passes it. Track weekly actions, not intentions. Every Sunday evening, identify 3 specific tasks for the coming week that advance your current quarterly milestone. These aren't aspirational, they're appointments with yourself. Research literary journals becomes submit to Plowshares, Granta, and the Paris Review by Friday. The difference between people who achieve their purpose-driven goals and those who perpetually prepare to begin sits entirely in this distinction: specific action versus general direction. When obstacles arise, and they will, adjust the path while protecting the destination. Your quarterly milestone might shift. Your 12-month outcome shouldn't, at least not in year one. Building an action plan. Progress compounds through repetition, not revelation. You won't wake up transformed after one productive week. The mechanism is duller than that. You'll do the thing, then do it again, then keep doing it until the friction lessens and the behavior becomes default. A process well documented in habit formation research. Lally et al. 2010. This matters particularly for single people over 40 because there's no built-in accountability partner witnessing your daily choices. Coupled people get ambient reinforcement. Someone notices when you skip the gym 3 days running or abandon the project you were excited about last month. Living alone means your follow-through exists in a vacuum unless you build structure that makes consistency visible. Set a recurring weekly review. 15 minutes, same day and time, non-negotiable. During this window, answer 3 questions in writing. What did I complete this week toward my purpose-driven goals? What obstacles emerged, and how did I respond? What's my primary focus for the week ahead? The act of recording creates clarity. You're not relying on memory or mood to track progress. You're building a factual record of movement. Allen, 2001. Flexibility isn't the opposite of structure. It's what keeps structure from becoming a cage. When an obstacle appears, and it will, your job isn't to abandon the plan. Your job is to adjust the approach while protecting the intention. Miss 3 morning writing sessions because of a work crisis? Shift to lunchtime slots instead of declaring the entire effort dead. Can't afford the pottery class you planned? Find free YouTube tutorials and start there. The goal remains. The route bends. This is where resilience lives, in the willingness to adapt without surrendering. Rosh and Shire, 2020. You're building a life aligned with what matters to you, not performing perfection for an imaginary audience. Some weeks you'll make visible progress. Other weeks you'll simply hold ground against chaos, and that counts too. Persistence doesn't mean grinding yourself down. It means showing up again after interruption, recommitting after distraction, and trusting that small actions accumulate into transformation you can't yet see. Your single life gives you the freedom to build this at your own pace, on your own terms. Use it. Celebrating progress. Tracking achievements isn't about curating highlight reels for social media validation. It's creating a private record of what you've actually built, something that exists independent of fluctuating confidence or shifting moods. When you're 40 plus and single, without external validators like promotions celebrated by a partner or relationship milestones marked by family gatherings, you need tangible evidence of your own forward motion. Keep a simple achievement log. Once a month, write down 3 concrete things you completed that align with your identified values. Not aspirational wins you hope to achieve someday, but actual outcomes you can point to. Finish the online course, hosted the dinner party, establish the boundary with your sibling. These entries prove your purpose-driven goals aren't just theoretical exercises. They're real changes happening in your life right now. The psychological benefit isn't merely about feeling good, it's about accurate self-assessment. Research on self-efficacy shows that people who track concrete progress develop stronger belief in their capacity to influence outcomes, which directly impacts persistence during difficult phases. Bandura, 1997. You're not manufacturing empty optimism or engaging in some self-help fantasy. You're collecting proof that your deliberate actions produce measurable results. Celebration matters because it closes the feedback loop. When you hit a quarterly milestone, taught a workshop, saved the target amount, completed 10 pottery pieces, mark it deliberately. Take yourself to dinner at that restaurant you've been eyeing. Buy the nice art supplies instead of the budget version. Tell a trusted friend what you accomplished, not because you need external validation to feel worthy, but because acknowledging completion signals to your brain that the effort was worthwhile and worth repeating. This is basic behavioral psychology working in your favor. Single people often skip this step entirely. There's no partner suggesting, let's celebrate your promotion, or noticing when you've sustained a difficult practice for 3 months straight. You have to architect your own recognition rituals, which feels awkward at first but becomes essential infrastructure for sustaining motivation over years, not weeks. Without these markers, achievements blur together and momentum fades regardless of how much progress you've actually made. What you've built across this chapter is a working framework, identifying real values through behavioral evidence, translating them into measurable goals, creating accountability structures that function without a partner, and ensuring your efforts remain visible by tracking progress. This isn't about achieving some final state of perfect alignment where everything falls into place forever. It's about building a deliberate, evolving life that reflects what genuinely matters to you, right now, in this season of your life. Your single status isn't a gap waiting to be filled by the right person or circumstance. It's the space where you get to construct something authentically yours, recalibrating continuously as you learn more about what you actually value versus what you inherited from other people's scripts about how life should look at 40.